Welcome everybody, thank you for being here. Please stand if you're able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We've got a fairly hefty agenda, but I promised I was going to keep people here too late, so we'll see how I do. We usually start off with the public comment period. Is anybody new here? I don't think so, but everybody knows the rules. 15 minutes is the public comment period. You're allowed to address the board about anything. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And before you speak, stand and state your name and address for the record. Any public comment? Doesn't look like it. Okay, we'll move right on to the agenda. First up, I asked Bob Wallabin, the hospital CEO, to come and give us an update on where things stand right now as far as what the hospital is doing, requesting a new certificate of need, and the transition toward not-for-profit status, et cetera, et cetera. So Bob, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and as Supervisor Gray indicated, I did promise to come back periodically and give you an update as to where we are. So it may not appear as though much is being done, but a lot of work is going on behind the scenes, so to speak. So here's where we are. We have engaged, because this is a fairly complex legal process, we have engaged a law firm, Denton's, which is a national law firm, and the managing partner that's going to be working with us on all the legal issues is Bill Owens. He's a member of that firm and is coordinating all the firm's resources to help us with the various components of the conversion process. The first part of that process is the development of a certificate of need application, which we are in the process of pulling information together in order to fill out the forms and submit it to the Department of Health. And we anticipate getting that initial application in sometime around the end of April, and then that'll start a clock at the Department of Health in terms of a public review and comment on the certificate of need application. The second aspect of the conversion is related to the valuation analysis. And again, through Denton's assistance, they have engaged a firm, HCC, which is a national healthcare valuation firm out of St. Louis, to start the process of looking at the hospital and its assets to determine what the value may be, so we can then discuss with the town the value and how that's going to be handled in the conversion. And then finally, we were notified last week, which was covered in the newspaper, of the award of $5.8 million from the Department of Health. That is a part of a multi-part grant application that we had submitted in October. A portion of that grant that we sent in was to fund the conversion expenses, and we have not yet received the $5.8 million, and we are seeking clarification from the Department of Health to make sure that we understand what they granted us the money for. So that's where we are in terms of an update. Obviously, there are a lot of other things going on at the same time, but those are the major issues. Be happy to answer any questions.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming. But the $5.8 million that you got, it seems that from reading the article, several articles, that it almost seems like all of the hospitals are getting whatever debt that they had. Like, that's pretty close to what your debt is it not?
That's how yeah, that's pretty close to the debt. That's correct.
And Ogdensburg was
right.
14.
That's correct. Yep.
So is that? Do you think that could be that? What the purpose of that grant?
So let me just clarify my comments. Our grant we submitted was for $21 million. We had 5 things in there. One of which was retirement of debt. Happens to be about that amount of money that we had identified. There were 4 other items in that grant, and so when the grant came out, it was actually listed on the state website as debt and refinancing. We just want to make sure that that's what the state gave us the money to do. that there wasn't some snafu on somebody's part, and they actually intended to give us the money to do one of the other 4 parts. Because the other 4 parts of our original application were the debt refinancing, we had conversion costs, we had an ER project, we had an inpatient project, and we had a major IT project. So that's what comprised the 21 million. And again, we just want to make sure, because when the state gives you money, you want to make sure you use it the way they intended. So we think we'll have that cleared up in pretty short order, probably in the next couple of weeks. My understanding now, it is for the debt repayments. That's, you know, unless there's something I don't understand, that's.
Do you anticipate getting more grant money for the other 4?
Well, we have other grants in. We
Is
submitted.
that all part of one, or is it?
No, there's multiple grants. The state health department administers multiple grant processes through the year, and we've submitted in several different grant cycles. So, you know, and they haven't awarded all of them yet. So I'm not trying to be evasive about the 5.8 million. Again, we just want to make sure. And you're absolutely correct. In the newspaper article, Claxton's was listed as debt refinancing. Ours was listed. Several others were listed. But elsewhere in the state, the grants were awarded, and they had multiple definitions when they notified the hospital. So again, we want to make sure, you know, because the last thing we want to do is commit the money to something and then have the state come back and say, well, that wasn't really what we intended you to do with it.
So I fully understand. The grant application you submitted was for several different amounts in one application, and you got this returned back, and you think it's for part of it, but you want to.
Right, we just want to make sure. Yep, okay. That's exactly right.
One of the, I'll speak for myself, I would hope that, we'll use it for the intended purpose, obviously, but I would hope that one of the first things we would look at would be the debt. To alleviate the town from that responsibility. When the hospital privatizes, then it won't be there. So that debt will no longer be there. You won't have to worry about it. We won't have to worry about it. How do we do this now that you're no longer a municipal hospital?
I would agree with your thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
The other thing that I had a phone conference with Mr. Owens and with Bob a few weeks ago, right after they were hired, and we talked a little bit about the valuation process. And I said, is that, you know, is it going to be, you know, one price for the building, one price for the contents, the buildings? And he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, what I understood him to say was that the valuation company will come up with a value for the business as a whole. So what is Messina Memorial Hospital in a snapshot in time worth at that point in time? And that is what the valuation company will do. So that would include, I assume, everything. Buildings, equipment, different locations, et cetera, et cetera.
The business side.
Yeah, the business itself. If you were going to sell Messina Hospital tomorrow, which, you know, I think the conversion process is more of a transfer, but it's something I've been asking for a long time, right? We need to know what this asset is worth. It's a town asset, what is its value? And that's exactly what this company that Denton and Stafford, et cetera, that the law firm have hired, that's exactly what they'll do. They'll come up with a price for the value of Messina Memorial Hospital, the business, as it stands today.
Well, are we going to verify that that's, or is there more than one? I mean, most of the time when you do an evaluation, you do 3 and pick the middle one or something.
So there's been some discussion before, or suggestion before, that maybe we should hire our own evaluation company. I'm not opposed to that. We just need to determine how do we do that, how do we pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's really up to this board whether we have a second evaluation or not, or a third if you want 3. I don't know that I want to go through the process for 3 of them, but 2 certainly would seem to make sense. But again, I don't know what the rest of you are thinking.
Not being completed, do you have a ballpark figure of what it costs to do that?
What the firm which specializes in valuations of this nature, healthcare valuations, $85,000. That's what we're going to pay for this analysis.
Bob, with the movement towards conversion and with the announcement of the grant, do you think that's going to positively affect the recruitment and retention of professionals, physicians, nurses?
Well, there's actually this past year, we recruited several physicians, 3. Actually, if you include some other physicians that come to us by virtue of contracts that companies have with the hospital, it's more like 6. And we are currently talking to several others. In fact, I expect commitments this week from 2 physicians, which would be a major improvement for us. So there is a lot of positive, despite the fact that it's a complicated process of conversion, there already is a lot of positive buzz, so to speak. So I think it's a positive.
Buzz over possibility of the affiliations.
That as well, yep. Which is another process that the conversations are going on at various levels at the same time. So a lot, as I said, on the outside, looking in, it may not look like there's a lot of ripples on the water, but in fact, there is a lot of work going on underneath the water line at this point.
About employees in general, bargaining unit employees, middle management employees, has there been any employees leaving to find work elsewhere?
There's always employees coming and going. So that happens as a natural course of the business. Our turnover rate, which we monitor every year, is a little bit higher than it was prior year, but nothing dramatically different.
Are you having trouble filling any positions? I've been watching the website, watching the jobs that are up. I understand there's a shortage of lab techs.
Well,
positions there.
we have had one position, one employee notify us that he's leaving the laboratory, and that job's posted, and we'll be looking to replace that
There's
individual.
4 there now, right? One ahead of the lab and 3 lab techs, I think. There's 4 positions for.
The head of the lab's going to retire. He's given us his retirement notice.
Do you think that the difference in wages between other hospitals will impede in employing other employees such as lab technicians? I know that some of the other hospitals are $10, $12 an hour more, basically 50% more than the wages at Messina.
Your information may be outdated, because I can tell you it's $20.
Difference?
One hospital's paying $20 more. They decided to raise their rates $20 an hour.
So do we do exit interviews if someone leaves to take another job? I've been hearing for a while that, the effort to privatize is gonna cost us employees, so we're gonna leave because they're no longer public. But is it possible that we're also losing employees who are simply chasing the money, like most employees, I think, would?
Well, I know one lab tech is chasing the money. He's going to Alexandria Bay for a dramatic increase in pay.
So not through another public institution.
I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why employees leave an employer.
So what type of retention factor will be at Messina if you're paying, I think it's probably around mid-20s for a lab tech, and they're paying $41, $43 elsewhere? I mean, 20 miles down the road, 40 miles down the road, what's going to hold the employees there? What's going to retain them? What's going to entice them to come?
You'll certainly recognize that as management, in fact, the head of management, I am precluded under the labor laws from commenting about some of the questions you're asking me about, because that would be a violation of the tips.
Exactly.
Threats, intimidate, promise, or survey. I can't answer your question. So please don't put me in that position.
Okay, I'll rephrase my question. In your presentation for salaries, you had a 2% increase per year.
We have a budget.
Future,
yeah.
2% per year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 50 cents on $26. So that's $26.50 compared to 42. I don't know how you're going to entice employees or retain employees if the wages aren't current to area hospitals. What's going to hold them? I know right now what's holding them here. It's a retirement that's holding them here.
Well, I thought that was holding me here, but you're saying that's not what's holding me here, so what is it?
Oh no, that's why they're leaving. My impression is.
Well, it can't be both ways, Sam. They're either leaving to chase the pension or they're leaving to chase the dollars. So That's what, I guess that's where I get confused.
If you don't have a state retirement system here, and you go by wages and benefits, you have a choice. If you have just retirement here, you have no choice. This is where you're gonna stay, because you're gonna stay here for the retirement system. So now you have to be competitive with other businesses. This business is paying, he says $20 an hour. I thought it was more like $12 or $16 an hour more. It's up to $20 per hour more. So now, Messina will need to raise their wages to match somewhere close to that $40 an hour for a lab technician. So you have to increase your wages 60, 70% rather than pay 10 or 15% for a retirement system.
But I thought, I thought that the argument was that the pension system was attracting.
It's a retention factor.
I was told it was keeping people here. And
Well, it
if went
was.
private,
Well,
people would be leaving.
The
But that's
town
not the
board
case.
voted to look into privatization, so that's the first step moving forward to
Yes.
privatization and doing away with the state retirement system. So now you have to have another retention factor here, to keep those employees here, or attract good quality employees, because if a hospital 20 miles down the road is gonna pay $20 an hour more, you're not gonna keep the employees here if there's a job opening there,
If it's as a private hospital.
as a private hospital. Exactly.
I don't disagree with that part. But again, the argument has been here before is that we can't go look at not-for-profit status because that will cost us employees who are gonna leave to keep their pensions intact. But apparently people are leaving regardless of the pension because they're chasing the money.
Well, they're gonna lose their pension if we go forward with this sale of the hospital. Okay?
We can
argue this after, let's not hold Bob up or Patricia
Right,
up,
we
let's
can't
take
have-
care of
we
this
can't-
business, we'll
right.
talk about
My
that
point
later.
is we can't have it both ways, so.
So the short answer is our turnover is up a little bit from prior year, but not substantially different. And people leave every employer for different reasons. And yes, we do exit interviews. Not all employees consent to an exit interview, but we try an exit interview as many as possible.
So go back to the $5.8 million in debt. What are the terms of that? I think I've asked you this before, like an update on that. What does that cost the hospital per year for that $5.8 million that's out loan?
If we were to retire that debt, that would drop our expenses by about $800,000 a year.
$800,000.
We have two payments. We have a payment in January and a payment in June.
The other, one more question. You stated that some of the money of the $5.8 million was for conversion. What portion of that was for conversion?
No. Our original grant application was $21.8 million. There were 5 components in that request. One was debt retirement. One was conversion costs. One was an ED project, expansion project. One was an inpatient expansion or renovation project. And one was a replacement of the IT system. So that's what I was referring to there. The amount that we put in the application for debt retirement happens to be exactly $5.8 million. So that's why I'm concluding it's probably that, but we want to make absolutely certain.
But I think that you stated that some of that money was for the conversion process.
No.
That's what I read in the paper. You just said it, I just wrote it down.
No, I'm telling you, the $21.8 million that we requested
Yes,
was 5 things. $5.8 million for debt retirement, $1.2 million for conversion costs, $6.2 million for an emergency room expansion project, $2.3 million for renovation of the inpatient rooms, and $6.1 million for replacement of the IT system. I think if you add those up, it comes pretty close to $21.8 million.
Okay. So none of the $5.8 million was for conversion process, that's what you're saying right now?
No, what we listed 5.8 in that grant application for debt retirement.
Okay.
And we just want to make sure we confirm that that's what the state awarded it to us for.
What is the timing on the valuation, do you think, Bob?
Valuation of hospitals is a complicated
Sure.
analysis. And I'm told that it may take upwards of 5 to 6 months.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you very much. Appreciate it, Bob. See you back here another time. Okay.